Hey you guys, welcome to the channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. So today we are making Snickerdoodle cupcakes or muffins, whichever way you want to serve them. They're both delicious. I made them 3 times this week, you guys, and they got eaten before I could frost them. Thus is why I am not posting the frosting recipe today. I will post it next week, I promise. It is yummy too if you want to serve them as a cupcake. I do want to mention before we get started, this recipe takes a little bit of time. It's not a quick one, so don't let that scare you off. Even if you're new to cooking or new to gluten-free cooking, I give you step by step. So it's simple, it's not hard, but it just takes a little bit. There's just steps in it to make sure they turn out yummy. Make sure you watch the whole recipe. Thanks for watching, you guys. Again, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so. I'm trying to grow my channel. Thanks again. Have a great week, you guys. Enjoy the recipe. Let's get started with this awesome Snickerdoodle cupcake recipe or muffin, if that's how you like to serve them. So I am making my little mixture, you guys. This is my cinnamon brown sugar mixture that I make into little balls and then drop into the center of my cupcake to create this like burst of cinnamon yumminess inside of it. And I think this is really the signature part of this recipe. I use a dark brown sugar because I think it's a little richer than the light brown. I'm also using some flour just to keep these little balls from going to the bottom of the cupcake. So you can see the measurement in the recipe. I'm also using my handy little teaspoon on one end, tablespoon on the other, Josie measuring spoon. If you order a cookbook, I might throw one of those in for free, you guys. So I'm putting some cinnamon in. And then I'm just going to mix this with my fork before I add my melted butter. Now, just kind of taking my fork and spooning it all together right here. And then I'm going to take my melted butter. Now, that was the challenging part, you guys, is I just could never get the exact amount on the butter because too much butter caused them to sink to the bottom as well. So I'm just kind of mashing it with my fork, but here goes my butter. And this is about 1.5 tablespoons, not quite a full half, but right under a half. Now, I'm just poured it in, I melted it, and I'm just trying to kind of just get it all good and combined. And I will tell you, it seems a little bit dry, but that butter absorbs, so it's not as dry as it looks. And so I just kind of keep mashing it all together. This is honestly the hardest part of this recipe. I just keep kind of stirring it, and I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like. But don't be over concerned if it's a little bit dry because it does get a little more moist as that butter soaks in, as you can kind of see right there. Now, this next part is the challenging part too. I have this handy little, it's like a pinch, a smidge, a dash, or whatever measuring spoons. And I will put the link to these in the comments, or the description. I'm using the pinch size. And so this is about the size you want. If they're much bigger than this, they tend to sink again to the bottom. So I'm just taking my little pinch here, scooping it out and banging it against my little paper plate. And then I'm going to cover these here in a minute with a little bit of flour and freeze them. It makes it a little bit simpler. Now, as I was making this, I realized this has got to be a little bit easier. So I take a little bit of flour and coat my pinch, and then they come out a little bit easier. So that might help you, but that's what I do. I just kind of flour it a little bit, then coat them, then dump them, and then I kind of keep a plate. Now, this plate I'm just going to put in the freezer here in just a little bit to make sure they're good and frozen. So here they are. I make enough to put 2 or 3 in each one of my muffins, and then I sprinkle them with a little bit of flour. Doesn't have to be perfect. And just kind of shake them around in that flour. Here in a little bit, I'll put them in a strainer and dump the excess flour off. But right now, I just kind of coat them like this and then put them in the freezer. So now let's take our stand mixer and add our butter, and let's whip our butter for a good couple of minutes. You know, I like to whip it until it turns like almost a white color. And I know it shocks you guys that I'm using a stand mixer, but I'm only using it for this portion. So if you follow me and you know in my cakes, I very, very rarely use a mixer, but I'm just doing it for this portion of the cake. So I'm just whipping it for a couple of good minutes till it turns white. You can tell there the difference in change in color already. And now I'm going to take it and add my oil. Now, that's kind of one of my secrets with this recipe. Is it takes a little bit of both of butter and oil. And that to me is one of the secrets with gluten-free cakes. But also you notice I'm using my scale which I highly recommend you do. It's going to be very difficult to make any of my recipes if you don't have a scale. But when you go to pouring your liquid into like this, like in this situation, go real slow. Just kind of drizzle it because it actually totals really quick, and most of the time you over pour and then you can't hardly scoop it out. So just go real slow while you add your canola oil is what I added in this recipe. And then I'm going to put it back on the stand mixer. Now, on the stand mixer, when I turn it on low first, just to kind of get it ingrained a little bit in that butter, or so it doesn't splash everywhere. But then I turn it on low, and then I kind of start turning it up and then crank it up a little bit higher. And I'm wanting a really nice, smooth mixture of that oil ingrained into that butter. And so the butter was room temperature, so it wasn't melted. So it's just kind of taking it a second to ingrain that to a nice, smooth, creamy mixture. That takes a couple of minutes. So you can scrape down the sides if you need to. But you can see right here how nice and smooth that is. Now, I'm going to add my sugar, and shout out to my mama for her strawberry canisters. So I stay at my mom and dad's house for a couple of weeks a month and take care of them. They are older, and I think it is nice to be able to honor our parents as they get older. But anyway, shout out to my parents and my mama's strawberry canisters. So anyway, I'm adding my sugar, and then I'm going to add it back to the stand mixer. Again, I'm going to start it on low just so it doesn't sling the sugar everywhere. And then I'm going to actually beat this for a good while. I want it nice and fluffy and creamy. And this, again, is part of the secret to this really good recipe, is we want a nice, fluffy, creamy mixture right here. So I usually do this for a couple of minutes, at least 2 or 3 for sure, before I come back and add my eggs. And I also like to kind of scrape it down on the sides as well, you guys. So as you can see, I have whipped this on high for a couple of minutes, and you can kind of see how nice and creamy it is. Now I'm going to add my eggs. Now this is important, you guys. Add one at a time. So we're adding 3 eggs, but then I like to ingrain them. I'm going to tell you the reason I do this is if you add them all at once, it actually deflates kind of the mixture and makes it super runny. And we're trying to hold on to this creamy fluffiness. As you can see, it's really creamy. And as you're making this, you're going to be able to see it yourself. And this is what makes this cake, I know I've said it already once before, but so good. So we want to keep this nice, creamy, and fluffy. So I just added my second one. I'm going to add my third one. And you don't have to mix it for very long, just enough that it's completely ingrained into the mixture. So now I've added it. Now, this is where, after I kind of see it kind of already mixed in, that third egg, this is when I crank it up. And now I'm going to run it on high for a couple of minutes. And while I'm doing that, I can continue on to the next step. You asked, what is our next step? Well, I'm glad you asked. So now I'm going to go ahead, and in a separate little cup, I'm going to weigh out my milk and my sour cream. Now, usually if you can set this out early, great, so it comes to room temperature, but of course I never think of it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get it measured or weighed out, and then I'm going to put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds, you guys, just because we don't ever add cold to our flour mixture. So I'm just doing that while my mixer is going on full blast, still with my butter mixture, making sure it's nice and creamy. And you can see it here. Look how nice and creamy and fluffy this is. And so that's what you're looking for prior to us adding the other ingredients. So now I'm going to take a separate bowl here, and I'm going to weigh out my flour mixture. And in this flour mixture, I will show you the type of flour in a second. And again, as always, I can't guarantee this recipe if you use a different type of flour. And you guys know I use different flours for different recipes. I'm not committed to one. So this is the one that I like best for cakes, and this is the one I highly recommend. So I'm putting this in a different bowl, weighing it out, and this is the one I love to use for cakes. So make sure you use that. I will put the link in the description. So also I'm going to add all my sodas and my powder and my salt here. And I'm going to just use my nice little measuring spoon again. I'll throw one of those in for you guys if you order my cookbook. Then I'm just going to take my kind of spoon and mix it up, make sure it's good. Or you can take a whisk or whatever. I'm just using as little as possible, and I'm going to use this spoon here in just a little bit. So I just kind of stir it together and make sure it's nice and combined. And now I will show you. I've got my liquid mixture, my flour mixture, and then my nice creamy butter mixture. And The next step is very important, so get ready, you guys. So this is how I like to put this cake together. So I take my dry mixture, and I want to put about 1/3 of that mixture into my whipped butter mixture. I like to use a spatula, and I just kind of like to toss it. I don't really, or more or less fold it in. I don't really like to really stir it hard right here while I'm getting the flour and the liquid kind of added together. Now here I like to put about 1/4. And the reason I say 1/4 is because I put 1/4 now, 1/4 of the second part, and then the last I have about 1/2 of that liquid, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But now I'm going with 1/3 of my flour mixture, so that's 2/3 now folded in, and I'm going to add just a little. As you can see, I just fold it. Now add a little more milk, saving quite a bit of milk for the end, and I'll show you again that in just a minute. But I'm just kind of folding it, using my spatula to make sure and scrape the sides and the bottom, and getting it all nicely ingrained. And now I'm going to add the last bit of my flour, which will be the third, the third of the thirds, and that's all the flour. Just kind of fold it in nice and smooth, scraping the sides. And it doesn't have to be perfect before you add your liquid. And now I'm going to pour the rest of my liquid. And I think this just helps with the nice last bit of it being nice and smooth. And I just fold it in nice and good, make sure everything's kind of scraped on the sides and on the bottom. And then I'll come back here in just a little bit, use my spoon and whip it. But right now I'm just folding it nice and smooth and trying to get everything nice and ingrained and a good smooth texture. Again, scrape my side of my spatula. Now I get my spoon and kind of get a little more aggressive with my stir, I guess is what I would say. So you can kind of tell, but you're going to be able to see here, I didn't really lose much of my fluffy whippedness. It's so nice and fluffy and smooth, and it's just almost perfect right here. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to add my last couple of ingredients here. I'm going to go with a teaspoon of cinnamon here, you guys. Don't go any more than a teaspoon because the cinnamon will tend to dry out your cake if you put too much. And it's not really one of those things, if 1 teaspoon's good, then 2's got to be better. No, that's not how this is. So just kind of stir it in, make sure it's nice and smooth again, and stir it in. And now you get to be a scientist, and I add a little bit of soda and my vinegar here. And you can tell it gets kind of fizzy. And if you've ordered my cookbook, you know I do this with my white chocolate almond cake and any white cake or butter cake. It just really helps with the texture of this cake and makes it stay nice and moist and really delicious, to be honest with you. And then I add my vanilla, and I like to use my Dominican vanilla. I'm almost out at North Carolina, but at my mama's I still have a little bit left, so use a teaspoon. Or if you want to go 2, that would be fine. It's fine to go 1 or 2, depending on your taste. But then stir it up really good, and you can tell this is a almost perfect cake batter. It's just nice and smooth and creamy, and it's dang near perfect. I like to let my batter rest for a few minutes, so I'm just now turning my oven on to 375. And it gives me time to also pull my little clusters of cinnamon sugar out of the freezer and kind of shake off the excess flour. I might run them through the strainer a couple of times to do that. And then I put them right back in the freezer because I want them to stay good and cold before I add them to my muffins. Here I am going to line my muffin pans with liners. I highly recommend that. It's just easier for cleanup as well as eating them. But I use my scooper. I'll put the description I'll put the link to the pans and my scoop in the description. I like to use the 6 muffin pan because I'm going to add my little clusters after about 13 minutes of cooking, and you want to do that quickly. So this just makes that a little bit simpler. So here they are ready to go in the oven, and I cook them for about 13 minutes before I very carefully pull out my rack and add about 2 or 3 of the clusters. Now you want to do this as quick as possible. Again, that's why I use the 6 muffin pan. And I just add 2 or 3 to the top, and do this somewhere between 12 and 13 minutes after you've cooked. Now ovens run a little bit differently, so you might have to kind of play with this, but I do it as quick as possible. Then put them back in and let them cook another 5 or 6 minutes until they're golden brown on top. And they may deflate just a little bit, but they rise right back up. And so here's a picture of them finished. And of course, I didn't get to frost them because they got eaten so quickly. I made them 3 times and they got eaten. But here they are, and you can just see the little clusters. Oh, and when you bite into these, they are so delicious. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you have any questions or problems, you can always email me at Josie, Joz, at chefjosie.com, and I will get back with you. Also, don't forget, I'm going to post the recipe for the frosting here in about a week. So eat them either as a cupcake or a muffin. Enjoy, you guys.